Hi there, friends and students. Thank you for being here at the channel. I'd like to apologize because it's been about a month almost since I posted a video. I'm going to tell you why, but also tell you something I learned during that period. So I've been helping my parents move into an apartment where they have independence, but they're closer to me and they have some help there if they need it. What I observed during this time was very interesting, and it's about how we talk about other people, or how we write about them. Now, I noticed this because my mom is facing some memory difficulties, and I've been observing the way I or other people talk about her. And this is what gave me some insights into how we can empower others by the way we talk about them, or we can disempower them. So here's an example, and then we'll get into what this is about and the how-tos. Let's say my mom and I want to go to San Francisco. Now, we know she has memory troubles. I'm going to be the one driving and making, the little decisions about buying tickets or parking and all of that kind of thing. But I caught myself at one point saying, I'm taking mom to San Francisco. Now, there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but the truth is that makes it sound like I am taking an action and she is receiving it. And it also makes us, I think, a little separate. I'm doing something, oh yeah, mom's there. But if I say mom and I are going to San Francisco, or we're going to San Francisco, now I've created a sort of equal level of empowerment. We're both doing this action together. I can even upgrade my mom's empowerment with this bottom example. Mom suggested we go to San Francisco. So my message here is that by toggling who is in charge of an action, and some other verb aspects I'm going to bring up in a moment, we can manage who is seen as having power. Now, this is huge in the workplace. We want to empower others. We want to respect others. And so let's look into how we can use who's doing something and then specific intentional verb choice to make sure that we are representing other people with empowerment and therefore showing something good about ourselves in the process, right? That we support others through intentional writing. Let's get to work. All right, so we're going to talk a little about how we can empower other people through using language intentionally. Let's look at some before and afters. And if you're a team lead, this is especially important for you because you want to help people on your team grow, develop professionally, and feel confident and like they are part of the team, right? Before and after, which is more empowering? The before, if you follow the steps I showed you, there shouldn't be any problem. Or the after, follow this process, maybe I link to something, and let me know if you have questions. Slight difference, right? Where in the first one, it's kind of like, I know how to do it, so you should too. And the second one is kind of like, here's a resource and it's okay to ask as well. I consider the after more empowering because we are giving the action to the other person more than ourselves, and we're doing it in a way that's open and productive, not about, hey, you shouldn't have a problem, right? It's much more positive than that. Let's look at one more before and after, and then we're going to take apart what's really at play here that makes some writing sound like we're empowering somebody and some writing sound like we're not. Our second before and after, and I've teased this one out in a class where we've discussed if we are given criticism, what's the most empowering, motivating way to give us that criticism? Because yes, we do have to talk about negative things at work and in life, but we can do so in a way that's productive and doesn't take away empowerment. So instead of, why did you add those design elements I didn't ask for? I've asked students what would be a more motivating way to say that, and here we have a couple ideas. We'd like to learn more about these design choices. Can you tell us more about these design choices? Again, we get an openness and we get more emphasis on the reader and other people than on ourselves. So let's look into how to do this. All it takes is answering two simple questions. And here they are. Who's doing things and what are they doing? These are two opportunities to provide power to other people. We can power share through intentional writing. And this is a great opportunity because sometimes we might be confident about something, but someone on our team might not be. Well, we can intentionally bring them in through our writing. We want to represent who's taking action. Remember the example with my mom. Am I the only one taking action? or are we doing it together? Two different ways to present that. And I would argue that the amount of power between me, my mom, and even some indications about our relationship could change based on the way I express that. Our second question will be, what are they doing? And that's where we're going to get into the verbs. There are ways to empower other people just by the way we describe what they do. Let's get into that. All right, so similar to the example we looked at with my mom, let's look at a more work-oriented example now. So maybe a department grew over the past quarter. This is good news. Again, who's doing things? How do we want to represent ourselves and others? And how are we going to kind of toggle who gets power as a result? My team and I achieved new growth this quarter. Pretty inclusive and shared. I led my team to new growth this quarter. Little different. Lavonda and Peter led our team's growth efforts this quarter. Now, if I'm the team lead and Lavonda and Peter are on my team and they were actually the leaders of this project, this is a perfect way to make sure that they are getting that public empowerment in an email instead of me keeping it for myself. We saw new growth this quarter. Our team saw new growth this quarter. Those have a sense of togetherness and inclusion and belonging. So you can use this simple area of who is taking the action to toggle where you want the power to be. Who gets to do things? Is it me? Is it all of us? Is it specific people? What if Lavonda or Peter is a shy person who needs to be kind of brought out and shown, yeah, you're making big contributions. This is where I get to intentionally do that. And I'd argue that we get a lot of good impacts there. These are some things that you can intentionally manage by deciding who is taking the action in your sentences. Capability, who's capable of things? Me and my mom, or only one of us? Who's capable of things on that team? Everyone? Just Lavonda and Peter? Just me, the leader? Or how do we spread that around? Which brings us to inclusion. Can we bring a larger sense of community and belonging through team language, we language, togetherness language? Of course, respect. When I take all the credit for something, that doesn't respect other people. This is a way to coach ourselves to ensure we're showing the strengths of others. And then lastly, and I think this one gets overlooked a lot, relationship insights. Based on how I describe my team's success, I think it gives the reader a little insight into what it's like on my team. If I say I led my team or Lavonda and Peter led my team, I think that shows something different about the dynamics of my department or of my leadership style as well. Okay, our second question, though, is what are they doing? So our first opportunity to provide power to others or represent others fairly and with power was to talk about who is doing these things, right? But we also have a second opportunity, and that's with the verb or action word itself. What are they doing? How do we describe the behaviors and actions of others? That can empower these others or disempower them. Now, these examples, kind of like I did with the mom ones, are personal, and then we'll get into a work example. Back when I was teaching college, we would have lots of interesting discussions about topics, about teaching, about society, etc. And I started to realize that when I was facilitating the discussion, I could make sure that my students were empowered just by how I spoke about what they had to say. So as a facilitator of meetings, or if you're writing up minutes after a meeting, these are some ways you can make sure everyone gets empowerment. When I was teaching a class, maybe someone named Myra has her hand up and she shares a really important idea. Well, later, I'm going to refer back to it. Ooh, that kind of reminds me of what Myra had brought up, you know? Look at these verbs. What should I say? Maybe a new student says something kind of reminiscent of what Myra said. I could say, oh yeah, that reminds me, as Myra said, as Myra stated, it's fine, it's neutral. But look at this, as Myra explained, starting to give her a little more expertise, as Myra taught us, starting to give her a lot more expertise. And I could flip it and put us in the center too and say, as we heard from Myra, or as we learned from Myra. So whether I'm centering her or us, I have this opportunity to use verbs that give Myra that empowerment, that expertise that she has, that she brought to that conversation. I don't have to just say Myra said. I can say she shared her expertise, she taught us. And so think about your verbs. Let's look at a workplace example. Somebody's leading a project. How do we want to talk about them? Ronald. Well, he is in charge of it. That's a verb is. You may know from my other videos, it's not my favorite verb. I'll simply ask you this. Can you imagine someone ising? Probably not. And if a reader can't sort of visualize what we're reading, it's real hard to remember or use. That's kind of a tangent though, right? Ronald is. Ooh, Ronald, you sound so powerful. You is. Ronald supervises the project. Now I'm giving some respect. That's actually his thing to take care of. Maybe Ronald is a little more distant or even higher up on the chain and he oversees. Now I'm giving maybe more power, maybe more than I need to. Or is it a sort of day-to-day thing and I can say Ronald manages the project? All of the latter three, I think, are more empowering than the first one. So think about the way I talked about my students bringing up their good points and how we might describe what people do, because we get the same impacts with this. We can see from verb choice, we also impact how capable people look, how included they are. Did they do something important and powerful, or did they just is? Are we respecting people's abilities? And again, what are we saying about the relationship? If I say Ronald is in charge or Ronald supervises, it kind of makes it look a little different in terms of how much respect I want to provide to him. So as we make these writing choices, I would argue that we're also showing something about ourselves when we do or don't use respectful verbs. All right, so try this out. Remember, it's only two things. Who do I want to be taking the actions? Let me make sure it's the people that I want to feel empowered. And how do I want to represent those actions with powerful, detailed verbs, not something that doesn't make them look very powerful. And if you'd like more insights like this, my book is actually a little bit on sale on Amazon right now. I'm not sure why, but the book is $12.99 anyway. And I wanted to share this really, it made me feel very good, this response on one of the reviews, because I think it might show why this book could help you with sort of decisions like we're looking at today. This kind reader said, reading this book is like listening to a supportive and patient teacher as she guides you through all your questions and frustrations with writing. That is what I tried to do in the book. We talk about who's doing things, what are they doing, how to be clear, concise, and empowering. So that's another resource for you if you're interested. Thanks for being here. I'll see you much sooner than with this last time around.